upon last time, Lok Swarup Bhavna. The whole universe is a temple at the time of Kevli Samudgar, that is the process where in any Kevli Bhagwan, in their last few seconds of their life as a Kevli, they would expand their all the Atma Pradesh, all the parts of their Atma into the entire Chaudraj Lok, into the entire universe, in touching each and every space point of the universe, and thus, making this entire Chaudraj Lok worthy of a temple, of worship, like a temple. Um, and therefore, it is something that we revere and we would like to understand. We talked about Anant Pudgal Paravarth, the concept of how we have lived in each and every space point. We have died on each and every space point of this universe, and our laps of this universe have been infinite. The diagram we had shared, with the grid points and everything, um, we've gone through these infinite laps of sansar, of birth and death. And then we talked about how we come to this final lap where we develop mukti advesh. We realize that sansar is futile, and hopefully all of us, after, especially after the, bhavnas that we have covered so far, we understand that the sansar is futile, and we enter this final lap, which is called the charmavarth. So we assume all of us are in charmavarth, and then the way to really, completely eliminate this, running around in circles, is to obtain samyaktva, the self-realization. At that point, our lap would be just reduced to half Pudgal Paravarth, and maximum half Pudgal Paravarth. And it could be, even shorter than that. It could be 3 bhavs, it could be 15 bhavs, it could be 27 bhavs, like Maharaswami Bhagwan, or, a much larger time span than that, but still a finite time span. And then we talked about why we have been wandering so far, and why, what is it that has been driving us. And we talked about how the mind is a traveler. Our mind is the one which is, like a monkey jumping from one thing to another, constantly wanting new stimuli. And the mind is conditioned by instincts since infinite lifetimes, and therefore we are always on the run. So the way to break that is to break this instinct driven mindset. And when we do that, we will be able to reduce our bhavs to finite bhavs, and experience the bliss at the end, which is the goal. So hopefully everybody understood this. If anyone has any questions, we can take them quickly, or else we dive into the new bhavna, the second last bhavna, which is Dharma Prabhav Bhavna. Okay. Right, no questions so far. So we will take this bhavna in 2 different ways. Dharma Prabhav. Prabhav means the effect of, or being influenced by, or like what we gain out of it, right? So we are talking about it in 2 ways now. Dharma Prabhavita, so how are we impressed and influenced by Dharma? And then the effect, the Prabhav of Dharma. Okay, so we'll talk about this in 2 ways. I'd like to make this more interactive, and hopefully everybody can participate. So I'd like to hear from all of you. This question that I've posed below is, what drives all of our behaviors of all the jeeves in general, our behaviors and every jeeve's behavior? What is it that drives our behaviors? What are like the underlying motives? Come on, anyone.
Just giving it a shot. So, unlike other jeeves, we are driven by this motivation to become better, to reach somewhere better than we are. On the other hand, when we talk about other jeeves maybe in Tiraj Gati, maybe even Panchendriya, like, but in other Gatis, they just focus on survival. I have to live today. Eat, drink, survive.
Okay. Okay. Good. Anyone else? What is it that drives our behavior? And all jeeves. So Subidin mentioned, that us as human beings are driven by, we want to be more successful or we want to achieve certain things. Yes, Kaivan.
Maybe our past karma builds the nature of our current reality, and that drives the behavior.
Okay. So what is it that drives the karma? Or what is it that led to the karmas? Path,
Maybe the perception about how we understand things.
the perception of how we understand things. Okay. Yes. Who is this? Akshit. Yes, Akshit.
The urge of happiness.
The urge of happiness. Okay. All right. Good. Yes, so all of you are correct in a way. But if we had to boil all of these down to very basal things, the very basic thing underlying everything, um, and actually even psychology talks about this. Um, Freud, I think he was around 1920 when he published his first paper, and he talked about the very basic instincts that drive all living beings. And he was mainly talking about human beings. It would be surprising, it was a shock to people at that time, it shook everybody up at that time in the scientific world. He talked about two basic instincts, sex and aggression. And this iceberg, this picture, this diagram of the iceberg is what he concluded from his psychoanalysis um, research, that what we know about ourselves and what we think we know about ourselves is a very small part, which is the tip of the iceberg, and what lies underneath is the unconscious, and which is mainly made up of the id, what he called the id, which was, and the id was the part of the personality which drives everything, which was driven completely by sex and aggression. And this might sound shocking. This might sound like, you know, how could that be? But you know what, Subidhi, what you mentioned about the motivation to do better or be successful is also part of sex and aggression. If you think about it deeply, if you think about it, what is it that we are trying to prove when we are trying to be more successful, or be motivated, all of these things, because we are living in a civil society, it doesn't come out as that. But what are the very, very basic instincts that drive everything? So in Jain Dharm, we talk about two terms here, which are closely matching what Freud had talked about, which was Dravya Mann and Bhav Mann. So Dravya Mann is everything that we know on a conscious level, and Bhav Mann is everything that is underlying all the instincts that we have collected over several lifetimes. So what are those basic instincts? And someone, I think it was Parth, I don't remember who it was, but or maybe Akshit, you mentioned that it's probably the way we identify ourselves is what is driving everything. And true, yes, it is the false self-identification. We've talked about Mithyatva several times now in the Bhavna sessions. So that is the underlying thing, and what that uh, really is leading toward, the way it is manifested, is these four basic sangnya, or basic instincts, which is hunger, sex, hoarding, and fear. Ahar, maithun, parigrah, and bhay. And all living beings, if we had to boil it down to all living beings and say, what is it that is driving all of our behavior, it's all of these things. At, in some way or the other, it may not seem very obvious on a conscious level, but underlying all of this, like, something that is submerged within, is this type of instinctual behavior. Okay. So what do we do about this instinctual behavior, and what is it that, what is the problem with it? If we are driven by instincts, it's natural, right? That's what science teaches us. All of this is natural. It has become natural because, we've done it for several lifetimes. So what is the problem with all of this? Come on, this should be simple.
One quick comment is Akshit mentioned urge of happiness. So that is true, but we basically believe that we'll be happy by indulging in these instincts.
Correct. Right. So it's, twisted, and that's the Mithyatva part of it, right? So the reality that we live in is twisted. And we believe that all of these instincts is what will lead us to happiness. So the urge of happiness, if we had to give one word for it, it would be the Maithun Sangnya, is what is driving us. So what is wrong with all of this? Anything, any problem with all of this?
It's all okay.
Soumya?
Uh, just trying this thing, one thing. Uh, we discussed it in Lok Swarup Bhavna that if it is real happiness, then it should be a state. Like it should not be something like once we are happy, we need not be satisfied or we need not have this urge to be happy again.
Correct. So it
So I think it's a reference to previous bhavna which we learned, Lok Swarup bhavna, that like Sid Sid Bhagwan
the other.
ni Sharana Siddhi Lok is the ultimate happiness. So anything apart from that is mithyatva.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, Rishi, you were saying something?
Yeah, I was going to say similar, right? That these are all based on dukh, right? These are all the basis of this is pain,
Hmm.
which is seems counterintuitive
Right.
for happiness.
Correct. And also, it really is the opposite of what a civil society is, right? So if everyone were to behave, based completely on their instincts, what would be the result? Complete anarchy. Everybody would be, just going after their instincts, and there would be no order. So all of the law and order that we see right now is based on dharma. It's based on religious beliefs. It may not be, Jain religious beliefs per se, but dharma in general. That is what brings law and order in this entire universe. So what Bhagwan has given us is agnya, and for lack of better word, I will call it commandments.
We call it best practices.
Best practices, yes, we could rename as at best practices. So how do we counter all of the sangnya, the four sangnya? We counter it with agnya, which is, for hunger, we counter it by overcoming our desires, tapasya. Sex or maithun is countered with self-restraint or sheel dharma. Hoarding, parigrah, is countered with Daan. So every time, any of these urges are there underlying, we have all of these, um, commandments from Bhagwan. There's Agnya from Bhagwan to do Daan, to have to keep Sheel, to do Tapp, and to have Bhavna. The final one is Bhav, to counter Bhay, and all of the bhavnas that we have learned so far. So that is what dharam is. So if we had to say what is dharam, or if we had to define dharam, it can be defined in these four ways: dan, shil, tap, and bhav. And you might have already heard this too, several times in vyakhyans or even at home. um, and we want to be influenced by this, right? So this is what we want our mind to be driven by rather than being driven by our instincts. So even though if we feel like we are not being driven by any of these instincts, underlying all of the things that all of the activities that we are doing, it's these four that are operating. And to counter that and to overcome them, we have Prabhu's Agnya. So, a lot of times we have heard that Agnya is Dharm. This is what we are talking about. Daan, Sheel, Tapp and Bhaav. Does anyone have any questions so far on this? I think this should be pretty simple and easy to understand. Okay. So we talked about, Dharm as Daan, Sheel, Tapp and Bhaav. And then Dharm is also defined as Maitri, Pramod, Karuna and Madhyastha. So these are the four, sometimes they're taken as four bhavnas separate from the 12 bhavnas that we are learning. So we are incorporating it into Dharma bhavna, which is part of, because they are part of Dharam, they define Dharam. And this is basically how we go about doing Dharam. How do we behave with other people and with ourselves? So, Maitri, as we know, is amity, friendship with all living beings. We talked about this several times and why it would be so. Um, why do you think this is so fundamental, and why do you think this is something, which is part of Dharam, our Dharam, Jain Dharam? We have Paryushan coming up, and it's the celebration of Maitri Dharam. So, why is it so fundamental? Learning from what we have talked about in all the other bhavnas. Can anyone elaborate on it? Why should we have Maitri with all living beings? Why not, use whatever living beings we need to for, whatever our goals are? What is wrong with that? Come on, this is simple.
Give them a hint.
So in several bhavnas before, we talked about how we are related to other living beings, right? So does that ring a bell? Yeah, Harsh.
Maybe our true nature and the other living being true nature is the same as Paramatma's nature. So as we love our life, they also love their life. So we do not have any right to kill any living being or harm their life. So that's why I think Maitri towards all of the Jew should be fundamental.
True. Yeah, Mokshay, you have something to
I
add?
think we keep taking lives, so we may be what they are right now. We may be in the past, or we may be in the future what they are right now. So it's like we are part of it, whether now or in the future, like in the future, in the past. So we all are one if you consider. So if I'm doing friendship with them, it's like I'm doing with myself in some of other bhav.
Absolutely. Yes. And just in the bhavna, just before this one, Lok Swarup Bhavna, we talked about how we are related. We have lived and died in each and every space point in this universe, which means that we have been related to, connected to all the jeeves in this entire universe, and not once but infinite times. So what something looks like an ant to me today might have been my mother in a previous lifetime. So we are related to each and every life, and therefore we want to love each and every life. I mean, nobody needs to tell us that we need to love our mother or our father in this lifetime, right? So hopefully we don't need to talk about that. But so this we would expand it to the entire jivastika, so, and all the jeeves in this entire universe. Then the next one is Pramod. This is an interesting one and a tough one actually. It seems simple, but very tough. It's the bias for good in others. So gun, you look at the gun in others, and to be able to do that, you have to really overcome your ego, right? So that's why it's really difficult. So when somebody is successful, when somebody is, better than us in certain aspects, whatever it is, if we are able to appreciate those qualities, then we would have Pramod Bhavna. That's a bias, and having a bias. So those are the words in Shant Sudharas. So why should we have a bias here? So far, we've been talking about being unbiased and vitrag and all of that. Why do we need to be biased? Why should we, why don't we see things as they are, like the good and the bad? And why do you think it's necessary to have Pramod Bhavna? Mhm. Yeah, Sudhir.
So, if we absorb good things, our heart becomes like our inner soul becomes good. If we absorb bad things, it becomes bad. And if we absorb both, it just, the good and bad just keeps conflicting with each other inside ourselves. So the more good you pick up, the kinder your heart will be.
True. Yes. So if we have a bias to look for the good in others, we will develop a liking for it, and we will develop a affinity for it. And when we have an affinity for something, Gurudev Shri always says, "Gun gamyo to gun maryo." If we like a gun, we will get it. So it's as simple as that, right? So Pramod Bhavna is something we can definitely practice, and we should put into practice on a daily basis, and that is the way to Dharma. Yes, Rishi.
So sometimes, right, there are just some people that, on the outside you cannot see anything good about them, right? Like, just sometimes the way they act or what they do, right? Um, so so then what do we do there? What kind of, like, there's nothing to be biased towards, at least from our point of view, right? So then what do we do there?
Possible, yes. So the other bhavnas that we have here, they come to hand. A lot of people, we either can have compassion towards them if they are in a situation which, is really terrible, or if they are just the kind that will, you know, we don't see any improvement in the near future, right? That's the type of people you're probably referring to. We come across a few like that, yes. And Madhyastha Bhavna is the one that Bhagwan talks about in those situations. And he had Madhyastha Bhavna for so many people. Like there is the example given in Shansudharas of Jamali, his own son-in-law, who went against him. He learned from Bhagwan the Siddhant of Jain Dharma, and then there was, a small difference of opinion, and his ego came in the way, and he just got stuck, and he questioned Bhagwan, and he started spreading word around that what Bhagwan, the way he's Mahavir Swami is explaining it is incorrect. And then he had a very logical explanation for what he was trying to put forth. So at that point, Bhagwan had Madhyastha Bhavna towards him. He did not force him to accept his opinion, because it's just a waste of time. It's whenever the person is going to get the right perspective, if they would get it at some point, they would get it. We don't want to spoil our peace of mind because of that, and we definitely don't want to get our ego involved in that. Our goal is moksha, and all of this type of stuff is a distraction. So that would be a way that Bhagwan has shown us to live with other people. And we experience that in our family, in our friend circle. There are so many people that we might try to tell them that this is probably wrong, you probably shouldn't be doing this, but that's just unacceptable to them. They just don't get it. And you don't want to like constantly have that friction with them. Anyone else has any other experiences where you feel like these bhavnas could be helpful? Yeah, Suvidi.
So, your explanation on Pramod, like, it reminds me of a story. So, a few years ago, I was in a pravachan, like at the Upashraya. So, Mahar Sahib was giving the same, like the topic of that pravachan was being Gurnanuragi, which is like appreciating the good in others. And he told a story of Krishna Maharaja. So, he was once going on his chariot, and from a distance his sathi, like the one who was driving the chariot, he smelled something, so he tried to change the path. So Krishna Maharaja said, hey, why are you changing the path? So he's like, I can smell something bad, there must be a dead animal on the way moving forward, so it's better that we change our path right away. So that was being far sighted and going in the right direction beforehand. But then Krishna Maharaja said, no, no, let's continue, this is like the right route. So they continued. When they came across that dead animal, Krishna Maharaj just smiled at it and said, hey, look at its teeth, they are so amazing, they are so shiny. So it was like, even though something is foul, it's smelling bad, doesn't mean that that person or that soul doesn't have anything good in it. So look at the good side, ignore all the other senses, and try to dig deeper and identify the good, because there's no soul on this earth or anywhere in the Rajlok which doesn't have anything good in it. So dig deeper for that one good thing they might have.
Correct. Absolutely. Yes. So that's the bias for good, and we need to practice that. It's tough. It's really tough to do this in day-to-day life. It's nice to talk about this stuff in a dharmic session, but when we when we face situations in life, it's really really difficult, and we have to force ourselves. And because of the instinctual framework that we've been in for so many lifetimes, it's just automatic that we see the negative in people. But yes, absolutely. And I've seen it in my personal practice. Some people that I've had misunderstandings with, or just disagreements with, I made myself write down something good about them, and remind myself that this is something that I should keep in mind when I face them, so that I'm not looking at them in that negative framework. And surely enough, there are good qualities in people. It's difficult, but it's doable. Definitely doable. And we need to keep practicing this. So great. I mean, I that's the great story that you shared, Suvidhi, of Krishna Maharaja and the dead dog. It was a dog with the beautiful teeth, right? So what is it that is stopping us from following our dharma? What do you think is stopping us from accepting all of this? Maitri, Pramod, Karuna, and Madhyastha.
Ego.
What did you say? Sorry.
Ego
Ego, correct.
seems to be the answer for everything. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else? It's also sometimes, we are afraid. And just before we started this session, Harsh was talking about how there are so many new students that have joined OSU. So, he sent out a message on a general group asking if there are any Jain students, and he was trying to collect their contact information. And then he added, he was a little bit hesitant to do that, because people these days don't view, like, you cannot mention religion because it's like a bias and things like that. So that could be another thing that is stopping us from following dharma, right? So we feel like we don't want to look dharmic, we don't want to show it as a bias that we have. um, but times are changing, and I actually just noticed something in the news. um, so is it still a taboo to say that I am influenced by dharma? I'd like you to watch the short.
It is truly an honor and a pleasure to be here today at Morari Bapu's Ramkatha, the University of Cambridge, on Indian Independence Day. Bapu, I'm here today not as Prime Minister, but as a Hindu. For me, faith is very personal. It guides me in every aspect of my life. Being Prime Minister is a great honour, but it is not an easy job. There are difficult decisions to make, hard choices to confront, and our faith gives me courage, strength, and resilience to do the best I can for our country.
Trying to get out of this is a little bit difficult.
It is truly an honor and a...
Just minimize first. Right most.
This one? Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so the point.
A pleasure to be here today.
You just want to just quickly stop sharing and then just restart?
Yeah, let me just do that. Sorry. So what the point I was trying to make here is, we have Jain Dharm, and we have an excellent framework that we can follow as a lifestyle, a guide for our life, for everything that we do, when we are studying, when we are working, all of that. And we don't need to be afraid. We don't need to be shy anymore. Times have changed. The UK Prime Minister is openly declaring that he is a Hindu, and those principles are guiding him. So why are we shy to say that we are Jain and our Jain principles are guiding us? We shouldn't be, right? So, and all of us have faced this dilemma. I have personally faced this dilemma too when I came to this country, and a lot of people had questions about why I eat certain things and why I don't eat certain things, and it was like, it's an ongoing thing, right, in the United States, and especially here in Ohio, where there were very, very few Indians before. It was a challenge and continues to be, but what I have experienced that in all these years is, if you're confident about what you believe in, people appreciate that, and people are fine with that. They value that too. So that's something that we just need to keep in mind. Anyone else has anything like that to share? Yes, Harsh.
Actually, I had the similar experience rather than being judged by people on the food habits, because I follow the Jain diet, and whenever I go, I ask people that I have certain restrictions, and everyone has that curiosity within them. So even on the face of curiosity, they will ask different questions. Why do you do that? And if you confidently explain them, I'm not saying they will believe you 100%, but at least they will appreciate you, that you know what you are doing. So I think if at least we know what we are doing and why we are doing, I think people will appreciate that. So
True.
yeah.
True.
I think Kaivan also had his hand raised.
Yes. Yes, Kaivan.
Yes. So I have kind of similar experience in my journey of United States as well. I'm sure everyone has it, but when I was here in North Carolina, when I was studying, so at that time I had to had many managers who were Mexican, so they didn't understand Jainism at all. So they were bringing cakes which has eggs, and for them it's like pretty normal. But
Right.
I keep asking whether this cookie has eggs, whether this cake has eggs or not. They don't understand that why I am drinking milk and everything. I'm not vegan, but I don't eat eggs, and I need to explain them. But at some point, they understood it. uh, if not understood, but they were convinced that I'll not eat eggs, and they adjusted themselves. And the next day, so she was a baker, so she made eggless cake specially for me
Wow.
and brought it on my graduation day and just returned that, yeah, that eggless cakes for you. So like, if you it's not like that being adamant on everything, but if you know you are doing the right in right path, people around you will start to adjust. And it has happened for to me like many times. Now people are switching to Jain diet because they are living with me, so they don't want to cook separately. So yeah, these things happen,
Wow. Yeah,
and
that's
it builds confidence as well.
really nice. Yes, and it's exactly, it's if you're confident about, you know, why you are following, what you are following, it will influence others, and that is the dharma prabhav that we are talking about. Okay,
Yeah,
so
and
we
that
are
is why
prabhaviत
that is why
by.
it is important to learn why. Because most of the times, most of the people just follow the dharma because their parents are following, but without understanding the real meaning of it. And then when they are in the influence of their friends, where they say that no, eating chicken is all normal and drinking is normal, they want the social validation from them, and they will start doing that as well. But if you know that what why are you doing, and oh, this is the right path, you will not be influenced by others.
Absolutely, I
Very
agree,
well said.
100% agree. Yes, Suvidhi.
So I had an almost same experience as Kevin Bhai. So when I went for I changed cities for my graduation, then for post graduation, and then like this is again. And so not just people adjusted because I was very I was pretty sure I'm not going to change my diet. I can do plus, but I won't change my diet for to adjust in any group. So people around me changed to an extent where every time we would go outside, they would have Jain food with me at most of the places. So my close friends, they even celebrated Payushan with me. So they did Ekasna and Vas with me during Payushan. So people do change if you are 100% sure about it.
That's excellent, that's beautiful.
Wow. I
Yes.
have, if we have time.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
I guess this is I guess this is now Prabhav, and you don't even have to be there, right? But the influence it can have, right? So my best friends, I grew up in the US, right? So obviously most of my friends were not Indian, not Jain.
Mm.
Um, but and so my best friend, he was like American Jewish in high school, and so we were into similar activities and stuff. So many times we would have parties or something. So his mom found out, okay, now Rishi doesn't eat eggs, so she would bake eggless cake or cookies for me. Um, so over 4 years, I mean, she learned and all that. So that was fine. But so his younger brother, so my friend went to like West Point, which is the army school. His younger brother also went to West Point, and the one boy from our Sangh, Jain Sangh, also went to West Point that same year.
Oh, okay.
So my friend's brother and this boy from our Sangh both went to West Point. So
Mhm.
she found out, right? Okay, per state where very few people go every time, right? Okay, she said, okay, another boy from Michigan also at West Point, and he's Jain. So now every time she goes to visit her, like his mom, they go to visit her son. She knows, okay, he is Jain. So because of me, she knows that he doesn't need eggs and stuff. So she will again make eggless cake and everything for him, right? In the same way. And so it is not because of me now, but anytime now she meets somebody Jain, right? She knows exactly how, right?
Wow,
Nice.
that's beautiful. Yes, this is dharma prabha. So if we are prabhavit by dharma, then we will be able to do dharma prabha. It's simple. If we follow it, we are confident about it, we know why we're doing it, people appreciate that. So that's beautiful. Thank you everyone for sharing. And now I can hopefully share my screen here. Okay, yes. Thank goodness. All right. So when
Nice.
we make
Can
our
you hit the share button or the slideshow? Slideshow.
oh yeah, sorry.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah,
So
right.
when we are prabhavit by dharma, as we said, we are able to do dharma prabhav, and that can happen. When are we prabhavit by dharma? When our mind is dharmic. We have a dharmic mindset, and it helps us in many ways. There are many things that you get from dharma. There are many worldly things that you get by doing dharma, just normal dharma, and there are many out of this world kind of things that you get too, right? But we're going to focus on what is it that will help us progress further. And one of the things, that basic thing that really helps us progress, is Prabhu Mann. If our mind is guided by Prabhu, by Guru, then we will go in the right direction. So what Dharam gives us is a guru as a coach. If all of any of you, if you have a Guru Maharaj Sahib, and if you are in constant touch with them, you will know the feeling that you're constantly guided, they're constantly behind you, and they're constantly with you. And along with that, you will also find Kalyan Mitra. And that's the whole goal of Jain Alert, to connect with like-minded people. So that we can, sometimes the guru is here. Obviously, the gurus are not here to watch us on a daily basis. There is Kalyan Mitra circle that we can use to move forward, to improve ourselves, to help us, go back on the path if we are straying away. So that these things we get with Dharma, and these are precious. Okay, this is not possible when you are Sangnya Vasit Man. When you have a mind which is driven by instincts, then you might have a truckload of friends, but they are not really looking out for you. They are not really looking out for the good in you. So that is really precious. And of course, it will help you improve your emotional quotient, learning about Dharma, having the mindset of compassion. All of these things are being taught to CEOs and prime ministers and presidents all over the world. We have it right here in our Dharma, and we can leverage it. So better decision making, because if you are guided by instincts, you will definitely make terrible mistakes. As a CEO, it might cost thousands of dollars and millions of dollars to the company. So all of these things, like mindfulness and meditation and compassion and empathy, and all of these words are being thrown around and being taught in the corporate world these days. But we have it right here, and presented in such a magnificent framework. It just, everything fits in together so well. It's practical, and it's also goal driven, and we also have a purpose. And having a purpose in life is extremely important. There have been studies which show that people who have a purpose and are driven by purpose don't stray away into depression, don't go into drugs, don't commit suicide. I mean, even those extremes are avoided. And life is much more organized when you have a purpose, right? So that is the prabhav of dharma. That is what we get from dharma. Another way to look at dharma, we talked about the means of dharma. Now we'll talk about the end. The universe is made up of 6 fundamental substances: Jeev, Ajeev, Dharm, Adharm, Akash, and Kal. Here, Dharm doesn't mean the Dharm we are talking about. Here, Dharm means the force which allows you to have movement, and Adharm is the force which stops the movement, which allows you to stay where you are. So this is more like physics, Jain physics. All of these, all of the Ajeev, so Pudgal, karma would be part of that. Dharm, Adharm, Akash. Akash is what gives us space. All objects are within Akash, and Kal is time. All of these have, a certain nature by which they operate. And Pudgal's nature is to, the particles to come together and fall apart over time. It decays. So all of the non-living things that we know around us have, they transform, right? They change constantly. They are decaying, or they are getting older, or they might fall apart, break apart. All of these things are part of their nature. the nature of Jeev, which is us, is to be within ourselves and to know. And that's why we have the curiosity and to be happy. The urge of happiness that we talk about is fundamental to Jeev, but it is twisted. It is, we are looking in the wrong place. And so, what is our dharma? What is our dharma as a Jeev? Is to know, is to have gnan of whatever things are around us and ourselves, and to be within ourselves and enjoy the happiness which is within us. But what we are doing as Jeev is the opposite. We are looking for happiness outside of us. We are not being in our nature, and we are not in our dharma. So the dharma of Pudgal or the dharma of dharam, adharm, akash, and kal, they are all in order. Everything in the universe is in order except for Jeev. We are mischievous and we are going out of our nature, trying to look up for things in other places and messing up the order. So that is where the end that we want to, the end result, the end of dharam, that the end goal of dharam is to be within ourselves, and that's very, very fundamental. And what is it that is stopping us from being that way? What is it that is really, not allowing us to be what we are? We'll just take it very quickly because we'll run out of time now for our meditation. Yes, Harsh.
Our mithya beliefs of our identity.
Yes.
Is
So there
stopping
are
us.
two things, Jeev Dvesh and Ajeev Rag. So we need to flip that, and Mithyatva is basically what leads to this. Rag and Dvesh, we talk about it, right? All the time, Rag and Dvesh, Rag and Dvesh. Where are we applying it? And when we apply, we add these words, it makes more sense. So we have Rag towards what is Ajeev, and we have Dvesh towards the Jeev. Okay, so we have dvesh towards the fundamental qualities of ourselves and all living beings. And we have rag towards the everything that's pudgal, everything that is ajeev. So what we can see, our body, things, money, all of these things, everything around us that we see and feel is ajeev, and we have rag towards that. And that's the fundamental mistake that we are making. So that is what is stopping us from being who we are. Any questions, anyone? So we'll take the Gatha from Shantudaras and then go into our meditation. This was a nice interactive session. I wish all of the sessions would be like this, but we are almost at the tail end of our 12 Bhavna sessions now, last one.
You can
Next
always
one.
come back.
So, what's that, Rishi?
I said you can always come back for more interactive sessions.
Oh, yeah. Don't know about the others. All right. So let's take the Gatha from here, from Shantudaras. Maitri Pramod Karunya Madhyasthani Niyojaye Dharma Dhyanam Upaskartum Tadhitasya Rasayanam. Let's leverage these four bhavnas to go into Dharma Dhyan. Dharma Dhyan and Shukla Dhyan are dhyans that we should be doing. They are part of Tapp. We talked about Nirjara and we talked about Dhyan as part of Nirjara. And the Dharma Dhyan is something that we all should be doing on a daily basis. And that is what leads to Nirjara, along with the external Tapps, of course. So the way to do Dharma Dhyan is to constantly contemplate on these Maitri, Pramod, Karuna, and Madhyastha. Maitri is amity with all. Pramod is bias for the good in others. Karuna is compassion for all. And Madhyastha is samta, equanimity. So when we constantly have these at the back of our mind, we are constantly contemplating on them, we are constantly applying them, then Dharma Dhyan becomes really, really potent. It becomes a rasayan. It becomes something like a medication that will help us do the nirjara that we are trying to achieve. Okay, so let's give it a try. We've talked a lot. Let's do some practical. All right, so let's sit down in a comfortable position. Close your eyes, back straight. Take a few deep breaths. Breathe in very slowly and breathe out. Breathe in the positive, pure vibrations of Arhantya Shakti, which is in this entire universe. And breathe out your Sangnya Vasit Man, your instinct-driven mindset. Breathe all of those thoughts out. Take a deep breath, breathe in slowly. Breathe in the Agnya of Prabhu, which is all over the universe. And breathe out your instincts, which drive you every day. Clear out your mind completely. Prabhu, I cannot express enough gratitude for giving me the Jain Dharma, the Jain way of living. You have told us what we should eat or not eat, and many other such guidelines. Not only that, you have helped me realize who I am, my true potential, and also helped me realize who I am not. When I am alone, or even when I am in a crowd, at all times, Dharma is my protector, my guiding light, the pillar on which I can lean on, the framework within which I can operate. In my decisions at home, at work, at school, let me be driven by your Agnya. Let me be driven by Dharma and not by basal instincts. These basal instincts come from my false ego, and I'm misguided by hunger, by hoarding, by sensual pleasures, and the fear of losing these sensual pleasures and this parigraha. This instinct-driven mind has only led me into trouble in each and every lifetime. Prabhu, please help me on the path of my true nature, which is Satya, the reality as it is, Kshama, forgiveness for all living beings, as they are my very own brother and sisters. Help me be myself, which is Sanyam, discipline, Santosh, contentedness, not always wanting more and more. My nature of brahmacharya, seeking bliss within me. My nature of compassion for all those that are suffering, or if they are on the wrong path. Let me be in equanimity at all times and merely witness the drama that my karma plays out on this canvas of the 14 Rajlok. and not blame other people and situations for what is happening to me. May I take refuge in this wondrous Dharma at all times. May I always be on the side of truth, and that is what your commandment is, your Agnya is for me. Let me understand that the best way to do Dharma Prabhavna is to first myself be impressed by your sashan and behave accordingly. All the collective pap karmas of all the jeeves in this Manushyalok are so many and so extreme that if it were not for Dharam and for the pious Munivar on this earth, this entire earth would have been engulfed with oceans and drowned, or the sun would have scorched all life to ashes. There would be anarchy everywhere, and this earth, this Manushyalok, would have become a living hell. It is only because of the Dharma and the strong protective vibrations of these pious souls that this has not happened, and that the world that we live in is generally a civil place. Therefore, O Prabhu, help me make Dharam my breath, so I too can spread the love and peace in this entire Chaudraj Lok. Prabhu, you illuminate this entire universe by establishing Dharma. Help me be your small Deepak and light my inner lamp. Logassa uchogare dhamma tithayare jine arihante kittayisam chovi sampi kevali usabhamajayam cha vande sambhavamabhinandanam cha sumayim cha Pahmopaham supasam jinam cha chandapaham vande suvihim cha puffadantam siyalasitcham savasupujjam cha vimalamanam tam cha jinam dhammam santim cha vandami kunthum maram cha mallim Vande munisuvayam namijinam cha vandami ritthanemin pasam taha vaddhamanam cha evam mai abhithuva vihuyarayamala pahina jaramarna chovi sampi jinavara tithayara me pasiyantu Kittiya vandiya mahya je elogassa uttama siddha arukha bohilabham samahi varmuttamam dintu chande sunimmalera aiche su ahyam payasayara sagar vargambhira Siddha Siddhim Mamadi Santu 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 Siddha Siddhim Mamadi Santu. Now continue the same jap quietly in your mind. Focus on your Agnya chakra in the middle of your eyebrows, where we do the tilak. No other thoughts, only the jap, Siddha Siddhim Mama Desantu, for 1 minute. Now let go of that jap. Just go within yourself. Enjoy the calm of quiet of yourself. Don't be disturbed by anything around you. Grasp the moment that you have. Stay present in the moment. Continue the focus on the Agnya chakra. That will help you not be distracted and just being with yourself. One more minute. One more precious minute. Now you may slowly come out and open your eyes. Siddha Siddhim Mama Disantu. Siddha Siddhim Mama Disantu. Siddha Siddhim Mama Disantu. If I said anything against Jinagna, Ichhami Vikramj. Shivamastu sarva jagata parahita nirta bhavantu bhutagana dosha prayantu nasham sarvatra sukhe bhavantu lokaha sarva mangala mangalyam sarva kalyana karanam pradhanam sarva dharmanam jainam jayati shasham. Jai Jinendra. Any announcements, Rishi?